Hello, my name is Corey Johnson. I am the library liaison to the Roots of Contemporary Issues program, and I want to welcome you to this library research assignment number 3, part 2 video featuring primary sources and definitions of them and explanations of them. So what you are seeing in front of you is the template assignment for LRA number 3. And to start things, I'm going to briefly go over the contents of the assignment itself. So you see, obviously, it starts with an introduction and a little bit about how to submit the assignment and how it will be evaluated. And then we get into the actual questions. Question number 1 being about finding primary sources, which is going to be the focus of this video and the next video to come about using different databases to find primary sources. The second question, as I scroll down here, is about creating an annotated bibliography. And there's not going to be any videos specifically about annotated bibliographies. I'm going to leave that up to your individual instructors and TAs to provide you with details about how they want you to do that question. The third question is about self-reflection on the research process. The fourth question and final question is taking your 2 research questions you created in LRA number 2 and narrowing it down to 1 single question, and then also providing an answer to that question. And an answer to your research question is essentially your hypothesis or the rough draft, if you will, of the thesis statement for your final paper. So those are the 4 questions. So let's talk about primary sources. And the way to start that off is just to ask the question, what is a primary source? If you're going to find one of these, and by the way, in LRA 3, you're required to find at least one. You'll probably want to find multiple primary sources, but at least one. You're going to need to know what one is. And so typically during in-person classes, when I ask this question, what is a primary source? Students will answer by saying it's a first-hand account created by someone who witnessed an event or had some direct experiences with a particular event or topic. And these are really good definitions. In fact, in many ways, the quintessential primary source, especially in the humanities, of which history is one, is that kind of definition of a first-hand account. Probably the best kind, again, of source you can get is when someone has lived experiences with your topic. Another thing you should know about primary sources is they don't necessarily have to be written text-based documents. Although those tend to be the most helpful, they could be a variety of other things. They could be paintings, they could be maps, they could be a sundry of audio-visual materials, they could be a wide variety of physical items as well. At this point, I'm going to switch over to this PowerPoint slide that I'm going to use as an outline for the rest of this video, including the first part. You can see what is a primary source. Now, sometimes when students again are asked this question, what is a primary source? Instead of providing a definition, they'll provide an example, like a diary, for example, which is, again, a good example because it gets at this idea of a personalized firsthand account. But it's also important to note that you do not necessarily need to have a firsthand account for something to be a primary source. For example, historical newspaper articles can be primary sources. And if a reporter who wrote a story about a battle during a historical war was not actually on the battlefield itself, experiencing the war, that would still be classified as a primary source. So don't box yourself into a very narrow definition of primary source. In sum, then, the basic thing you need to understand is what makes something a primary source in the humanities is time. So time is very critical. And in RCI, that historical time period is typically a pre-1980 or pre-1990 time period, again, depending on the particular requirements of your section. Now, for some topics, that might be fairly obvious what historical primary time period works for you. If you're researching World War I, then during World War I is the time for your primary source creation. For other topics, your primary source is maybe not so obvious for that time period. If, for example, you're researching the history of climate change, it sort of begs the question, well, when did climate change start? Or when has it happened? Well, this is a slow and evolving process, right, over many centuries. So what you'll need to do as a researcher for this kind of topic is to pick a time period that may be important to you. Maybe when the first solid scientific discoveries about climate change were made, for example. And there are many topics, a lot of social related topics, things related to issues with sexual orientation or race issues or whatever that have occurred over many, many centuries and millennia, as long as there have been people. And so you'll need to define what that historical time period is. I also want to talk about a couple of other keys to success concerning primary sources before we launch into finding them in the databases. The first thing is to know your vocabulary. And in order to talk about that, I want to tell a brief story and ask a question about it. So when I was working with an RCI student in a previous semester, this person's topic was human trafficking. So he went into an appropriate historical newspaper database, limited to the years 1900 to 1950, typed in literally the words human trafficking, spelled those words correctly, hit search, and got nothing back, got 0 results. And so the question is, what happened to this poor RCI student? Again, did everything right, appropriate database, appropriate words to describe this topic, but got nothing. Well, the issue here is that the term human trafficking wasn't used in the deeper historical past. So a real key to success is knowing your vocabulary. Some words that we use in today's world just simply were not used back 50, 100 or more years ago. So then you may wonder, well, okay, if my topic has this terminology that's too contemporary, what search term should I use? Well, one of the things that's important to do is to tie your topic to specific historical examples. The names of people or groups of people, the names of events, the names of laws or legislation, for example, could be very important to you. And the place you can find those is in the secondary sources, the books and the articles that you've already gathered. And by the way, as long as I'm talking about the books and articles you've already gathered, for example, as part of LRA number 2, the bibliographies of those books and articles oftentimes also have primary sources in them as well. So now that we know more about what primary sources are, the next video will dive into the task of finding primary sources. So thank you for listening. And as always, go Cougs.